Hi, this is Louise Smart. I'm going to be sharing with you about dominion over our reality. Before we deep dive into that, just so that you know, if you want to click through to my website at any point or after you've finished listening to this, there's a little arrow at the bottom right-hand side of the screen of the YouTube recording. And if you click on that, you'll see all the links and information there. So also, before we really get sort of stuck into this, I want to really clarify something, and that is that when I say the word mind, I'm talking about our God source creator mind, the love, the all-inclusivity of that creator being that gave birth to each of our individual consciousnesses, each of our minds. So this is since the beginning of time. And if you think, I like to use the imagery of like a sun, and that's the creator, and then the individuated rays of light, or our soul light rays. So we're all still connected, but each individual ray is like a thumbprint. It's completely unique. So we all share this one God mind, which is our true identity. And it's the home that we're all really seeking to come back home to via the awakening and ascension process while still in the body. It's really a journey with no distance because it's who we are. It's our essence. And so awakening is really remembering and choosing to identify only as our essence, as inseparable from the love of our God, goddess, source, or whatever you want to call it, our creator. So for as long as we fear and attribute anything in our perceived world and reality as if it's caused by something or someone separate outside of our own individuated consciousness, our own mind, so like that ray of light, the individual consciousness of that one, we're part of that one mind, but in our own sort of singular mind, if we remain fearful and we're attributing cause to externals, then we actually remain unawake to our own power to actually deconstruct and uncreate any adversity that we no longer wish to experience, be that lack, illness, relationship difficulties, loneliness, it doesn't matter. So diving in, our belief and entrained perception that we are separate from our source creator is what actually disconnects us from the full extent of our creative power. We're unawake and we're in denial, or we're in doubt of our innate dominion over what we have called forth. And so we don't know how to actually actualize that dominion. We react with fear and insecurity and a sense of weakness, and we don't really know how to transmute and transcend those difficult relationship dynamics with family partners, friends, or anyone in our path. Nor are we able to transmute and transcend the tragedies, the traumas, the betrayals, and the illnesses that we have called forth as part of a pre-incarnational contract with our own soul and with other souls. And so when we're heavily identified with our judgmental reactive ego, we cannot sense our shared mind, because it's judgment that is the complete opposite to unconditional allowing and unconditional forgiveness. And that is like a sort of physical, energetic block to knowing our shared mind. And so we see everyone and everything is separate from ourselves. We don't know how to totally surrender and trust and rely on our God mind to call forth a miraculous resolution to fear and conflict, or to collapse any of our self-created problems. We also don't discern when it's necessary to actually say no more to anyone or anything that is actually an act of self-love instead of a reactive act of rejection. Because we've been taught, many schools of spiritual and religious thinking is that, you forgive everything. And that is true. But when I'm talking about forgiveness, and I'll be going into it later, it's not the same as forgiveness as in you are wrong and I'm right. where, you know, someone's guilt comes at your innocence, or your innocence comes at the expense of someone else's guilt, what that does is it just polarizes us and keeps us separate from actually the truth is that the one mind is not in judgment. We've been created with free will. So until we take radical responsibility and ownership without any judgment, without any self-blame or guilt whatsoever, for all that we've called forth, that includes all that we see, all that we feel, all that we think, and all that we sense and empathize with, as being the outplay of all we hold inside our own mind, in our own consciousness, and the effect of our own desire to experience it. Until we take radical responsibility for all this, we're going to feel and react to life as if we're at the mercy of outside forces, a victim of a seemingly external universe and others' control. We're going to perceive ourselves subject to society, to genetics, to ancestry, to family, to history, to external systems, authorities, governments, elite agendas, to psychic, astral, astrological, or cosmic influences, and also the force field of human opinions and manipulations and the density of what is termed the collective mass unconsciousness. And we can also be a victim of our own empathic sensitivity. So to really bring this point home, we call that forth too. There are no exceptions. We have desired it all. So acknowledging and embodying that knowing that we are responsible without blame and without guilt, that's how we come home to the innate dominion of our sovereignty. So it's really the essence of innocence, which is not the same as society, attributes innocence to, that childlike innocence. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the innocence that we've been given free will to experiment and explore and to create, because we've been given that God-given power in the likeness and image of our Creator. So, if a creator creates us with free will to do what we want, it's hardly going to turn around and judge us. It's us that do the judgment. So because we know, and acknowledging and embodying that knowing that we are responsible without blame or guilt is how we come home. Because when we know our innate dominion and choose to exercise our dominion, when circumstances present as a trigger, we quit blaming externals as being the cause of adversity. And crucially, we quit splitting off from ourselves, from our essence, by giving our power away to the illusion of a separate power outside of our dominion. We quit giving our power away to anything or anyone. So this is timeless wisdom. It's nothing new. And it is the fundamental principle at the heart of true expansion and awakening, that there are no external forces that we do not have dominion over, only that which we have called forth as a desire to experience for the sake of extending our creative power itself. To believe otherwise is self-deception. So this is a fundamental truth that we find the hardest to acknowledge, accept, and integrate. And we can spend lifetimes dancing around it because we cling to the ego's love of judgment and blame and punishment. And so we delay the gratification of remembering and accepting this truth that is the doorway to our complete freedom. So even though our ego creates its reality outside of love, nevertheless, it is still enormously powerful because it's still using an albeit distorted aspect of that very same power that comes from the omnipotence of our God mind. So choosing to give up the ego's hold on our reality and completely surrender and commit to being guided by our true mind as one with source is what is really meant by going through the eye of the needle. It is not for the faint-hearted. The ego is very, very, very tenacious, but holding on to it is like refusing to give up €1 in exchange for receiving €1,000,000. Why would we hold on to it? Because we're just delaying our own gratification, basically. So it really can indeed be quite shocking when awareness begins to turn back on itself to observe the mechanics of its own thinking processes in the world, and then to hold the thought that the thoughts that are arising in the mind are there for no other reason that they have been desired by the truth of who we are. And you are that power which has been birthed from the mind of God, made in God's image, that is, with infinite power to create what you choose to experience, including adversity. Desire then is integral to the understanding of the very process of transformation, because what you desire, you do experience. Even if you don't like it or hate the experience of what you're observing, at some point you desired it and called it forth. So, in fact, all events are neutral until we impose our compulsive labeling and judgment on them. So that's really what epitomizes ego consciousness, is judgment and blame. But without the judgment, things just are as they are. It's our really obstinate, obsessive identification with judgment that actually binds us up in the vice-like grip of an uncomfortable, dense energy that we both fear and we want to escape. We want to escape the torment as if it's being done to us, as opposed to us doing it to ourselves. So why would we choose to experience adversity? Quite frankly, it's just very simple, because we can. Because as an eternal extension of Source, we have been given free will to desire any experience, including the experience of being separate from love, and to witness the entire unlimited spectrum of experience and emotions and sensations as a result of that separation from love. And we've been given all of this without any judgment or condemnation for our choices by our Creator. It's only us as humans in a state of unawareness of our vast divine power. We're the ones in that state of unawareness that believe in judgment and punishment and paying the price for our free will choice, which is what the notion of balancing karmic debt is. So karma, the whole thing, the real problem with it is that we have this identity only with that separated aspect of our God self, the ego mind. And the last thing the ego wants is to feel responsible for our own pain. So we play the game of blame and judgment, and we never, ever own the power we have used to create outside of love until we desire to wake up. And so in the interim, we become egocentric instead of God-centric, and we repeatedly disempower ourselves by attributing the cause of adversity to someone or something outside of ourselves. And this is what fragments our soul light. So our soul light literally comes in through the body, but if we get into any kind of adversity and we start to judge it, we literally split off from ourselves. You know, that's how we've gone into separation. We've split off from our soul light, from the immense power and love of our wholeness that allows all things, forgives all things, and trusts all things, and transcends all things. We really just forget the fullness of who we are by identifying only as the ego. So karma is actually a man-made third density enslavement construct that's built entirely on judgment and guilt as a mechanism of control through fear of punishment deserved. So the fundamental precepts of karma run through society, religion, and spirituality, and they keep people inside an energetic frequency fence in bondage to their fear of punishment for the supposedly unforgivable past, and in bondage to separation consciousness that pays homage to a punitive, wrathful, judgmental God. So basically this frequency fence and the gridding of this belief in our physical bodies that we're separate, it maintains that nobody gets off the hook, that nobody allows themselves or anyone else off the hook. And that is until we challenge our allegiance to this worldly belief and start to take responsibility and own what we have created from the perspective of the unconditional innocence of our free will, as opposed to the judgment of our free will. This frequency fence is what perpetuates a fear of God, which is really gridded into our physical body in the crystalline structures of the planetary grid. More and more of the ley lines on our planet have been distorted by the extremes of fear implicit in the consciousness that is separate from and fearful of the heart of God's unconditional love. So over centuries, thousands of years, actually, this is what's been going on with the ley lines. And this affects, you know, our health in our homes and the land and, you know, properties, and affects animals, it affects all of us. That's what's going on. You know, the distortion is in the planet and it's in the gridding in our own physical bodies. And this frequency fence, it perpetuates a mistrust and a total disconnect and denial of the divine qualities of unconditional love and unconditional mercy and forgiveness, which are really the very qualities that release us from any self-imprisonment to karmic debt. So I'm going to be talking about energy clearing a bit later on, as that's what I'm doing, clearing the effects of the frequency fence that, you know, we have chosen to be born into, but nevertheless, it sort of sits there in the background. You know, it's like really a sort of toxic atmosphere that we can't see, but it's basically going on all the time. So I clear energy in houses, I clear private and personal energy, and energy for animals and families and businesses and business teams. So this frequency fence is what keeps us disconnected really from the intelligence that no matter how dark the experience, for instance, being betrayed, we called it forth. We desired it. So why would we then go out and punish ourselves or another for it? If we really know that we've called something forth, then punishment is just like adding salt to a wound. Madness, really, isn't it? So the base notion of karma is a simplistic, superstitious take on the notion of cause and effect, with no way out except through justified punishment as payment due. And it really isn't loving, it isn't forgiving, and it isn't allowing, and it isn't trusting. Whereas the justice of source of our creator is unconditional allowing and unconditional forgiveness, unconditional being the really important term here. So again, why would we do this to ourselves? Why would we give ourselves, why would we call forth so much adversity and suffering? In the grand scheme of eternity, it is our lifetime now is one tiny fragment of our being in time, innocently desiring to call forth and explore what it is and to create with another power other than love, and the desire to call forth and experience the full spectrum of that, including adversity in all its myriad forms. So the problem is we identify only with that tiny creative aspect of our power, and we reject our God mind that actually allows all things and accepts all things and embraces all things unconditionally. So really, you know, positive separation is making the shift from identification with the ego and working through the shadow energies that have been collected over time and are imprinted into our energy bodies, shifting and cleansing and alchemizing all of that and moving identity into our God self. So instead of unconditionally allowing our creations and perceiving them as neutral, what we've done is we've thrown judgment and punishment and self-punishment into the mix. And this is what really concretizes our ego mind. Judgment is the dense binding glue that keeps us stuck in karmic cycles. Judgment keeps this illusory reality ticking. Judgment is what creates the weight of density of vibrations that we feel, because it gives rise to endless guilt. And guilt is a very heavy, uncomfortable vibration to feel. And so we do somersaults not to feel it. Guilt, when you think about it, is actually its own form of punishment. It is very much linked to fear, because guilt in the judgmental ego mind is always deserving of punishment. And so we try to suppress and deny that guilt, or we project that guilt and punishment onto others. We would rather project blame onto others than take responsibility for what we ourselves have called forth without blame. So if we've had some betrayal, so someone's betrayed us, we've called it forth. We've made a soul contract pre-incarnationally for that to happen. So to add blame and judgment onto the mix instead of learning how to take responsibility, learning how to diffuse and let go of pain and hurt, learning how to transmute and alchemize the trauma and then move into full identification with source. That's what needs to happen for us to get free. So it's really guilt giving rise to a deep-rooted unworthiness in us, feeling unworthy of good things because we're guilty, is what drives people to people please and appease others and compromise, and all of that leads to resentment and reactivity of that resentment and anger. So the kind of distortion of separation consciousness, where we feel that we're not the cause, that someone else is, and then we go into our own unworthiness and resentment and guilt and anger. You can see it's a right old mix that really can create a lot of confusion and a lot of pain and adversity, individually and collectively. So to free ourselves, we have got to move towards forgiveness, and really by forgiveness here, I mean the allowing, the acknowledgement that we created and we've been allowed to allow our own creations without judgment, not because they're bad or wrong or someone else is bad or wrong, but because forgiveness and allowing of our innocence of our free will as we were created and as we create actually mimics the qualities of our God source. As a result of this unconscious denial and rejection of the reality of our God-given dominion, we really have no real concept of living freely without fear in the present. We don't feel at home and safe here. And so we're well defended to ensure protection against adversity, especially lack and loss, that we never question their origins or our defenses. The origin of lack and loss and all adversity is in our own mind. It's concocted in our own mind, in our own consciousness, maybe lifetimes ago, or maybe right back at our inception. But we ourselves originally concocted it as the idea of a power other than love, which is how we separated from our God self. And we just accept, when we're unaware, we just accept that the result of our self-created separation is how life is. We take the shit with the cream, I say. We just accept that that's how it is. But it's actually a shadow of true reality. And true awakening to true reality means awakening to our Christed consciousness. So this is not about Christ, Jesus the being. Our Christed consciousness is knowing who we are and acknowledging who we are and identifying with who we are in truth as part of the one mind, not the separated mind. So it's not a denial of our ego, but it's the identification with our true self, where only the love of source is entertained. And that's when we only create from that love by choice, consistently and without deviating. So we need to be in a state of compassionately willing ourselves to heal our consciousness and transform our mind to do this. Everything we are experiencing right now and always will be a case of it arising from our own very powerful creative mind, our very powerful consciousness. So for as long as we don't question our tendency to play small, to defer to others' authority and to seek refuge in gurus and systems of guidance to navigate supposedly outside forces, we just remain in a state of self-denial and rejection of our innate dominion. And this denial generates fear of our own manifested creations. So if we've created something, albeit an adverse situation, if we can create it, we can uncreate it. So the process of moving towards uncreation is not necessarily understanding how form comes into our reality, but to recognize the state of mind that would entertain adversity. That is in and of itself, it's a step away from pure love. If you step away from it, it's a sort of self-rejection. So that is what has to be, you have to drill down to that within yourself, deep, deep, deep in the core of your energetic and the mind of your totality, to look at how that sits in your physical structure, how you feel that separation, and that can be transmuted and healed. So until we are able to do that, we're avoiding the knowledge and connection and trusting our own master teacher within. And this generates fear of someone or something having power over us and controlling us. The teacher within us is the part of us that is in constant knowing of itself as inseparable from source. So this is going on the whole time. This has never left us, but it's basically layered over by the belief that we're this small ego, helpless victim of life, at the mercy of life. So our helper is the quiet voice, helper teacher is the quiet voice of the comforter and the guide within that was created the moment a tiny part of us chose to create and experience a separate reality from love. And that teacher, whatever you want to call it, your higher self, your Holy Spirit, your guide, your teacher, that is what enlightens and awakens each of us to the fullness and innate safety of our vast power and dominion when we fully desire to know it. No one else outside of us has the power to awaken us. So everything's set up for us to win at this, to be a success at this, because everything, all the technology, the spiritual technology, all the access to this higher power is already existent inside us. No one else knows your unique way home to the truth of yourself. Your power is in and as source. You reveal your own way and your own path and your own truth of yourself when you truly desire it enough. So the words I use is that self-realization is a process of realizing your real self by yourself. Self-realization is self-actualized. You're the one that sets the coordinates, pre-incarnation, you set the coordinates forth. So whether it's a person or a place that you go or a book that you read or you see something in a film, it's all set up in advance for you to notice your own signposts. So no one else does this for you. So trusting yourself is an absolute vital, it's absolutely vital. And anxiety, if you think about it, it's really a fear of self-reliance in a world that you called forth from your own level of consciousness. Anxiety is merely a smokescreen that you use to delay your return home to the heart of source, to your creator. So if we feel called to seek guidance or support on our way home to love, we are better off seeking only those who can compassionately direct us back onto our own path of self-reliance in our own self-awakening process. We're better off walking away from anyone that tells us the universe is conspiring with them or you, as if it's a separate entity that can change its mind or offer us special dispensation or special energy only on special days or by visiting special places. The entire universe you now perceive arises from your mind. So your perception and your mind are linked. I don't perceive the same as you. That's not to say that I'm different or better or anything. It's just I don't perceive the same as anyone else. My reality is coming from my mind. So how I perceive it, how I respond to it, how I know it, how I call on my inner teacher, that's absolutely down to me. It's got nothing to do with anyone else. So that is the mind we all inherently share, the creator mind. That is our true oneness. So you can choose to use your free will of this God mind, creative power, to project a separated consciousness that bends the universe to be the world that victimizes, punishes, deceives, betrays, and destroys. And that is what you'll experience and evidence directly through your own experience or indirectly by witnessing others' experiences. But it's not a fixed, intractable reality going forward, because the cause of the universe you witness and perceive and experience is in your own mind, and it's not. And that mind that you are is not fixed or intractable. It is infinite, and you can use it to create anew by knowing how to choose anew without more self-sabotage through adversity. It is very simply all about exercising the power of choice. So with that comes mastery over dealing with the density and the traumas and the shadow body that basically is like it impinges on that clear, crystalline power of decision through desire to create only with love. Obviously accompanied and directed and guided by your God source self. So it's a surrendering to that. I'll be talking about that in a minute. But you can also use your free will to awaken yourself to the infinite mind you share with source and all other beings by choosing to forgive, heal, and transmute your consciousness that originally desired called forth the world you now experience. You can choose to align your consciousness with the heart of source and own your Christ consciousness that has always been there. And you can be free of fear and needing others to predict for you what is coming your way, because whatever is coming your way, you chose it without exception, using your free will, lovingly given you by source that does not judge or condemn or punish. So you are the one that can use that same power to make a different choice to call forth a new reality. Now, there's no special time or day or place is needed unless you choose to believe that you are not already and have always been since your soul's inception. You have always been your own vortex in highest alignment with the unconditionally loving, forgiving heart of source. There's no external power that, activates you to a higher part of yourself. It's all, you are all of the activation. You are the light that comes from source. You're just waking up to yourself. So you just have to decide to own that power and get free of identifying as being at the mercy of that gravitational pull of the density of anything that you've called forth. So whatever you're experiencing right now, you desire it. How you go about changing what you desire to experience is down to how much self-trust and self-reliance you are willing to accept in calling forth a miraculous loving shift. It's down to how much compassionate self-love you will permit yourself to give those parts of you that are lingering in delay and lingering in hurt and pain and choosing to suffer and repeat painful patterns. We all have eternity to make that radical choice and desire to call forth only the good and only the beautiful and only the holy. And until we choose only the good and only the beautiful and only the holy, we all continue to dance the dance of hiding from our power and seeking refuge and seeking refuge in others and creating adversity to victimize ourselves with fear and suffering. It's an exhausting karma drama. And you will know when you're done with this, because you will absolutely know it deep within inside of you. And that's when you move into your self-realization process and taking responsibility for yourself without any self-blame. All looking at everything with the innocence and neutrality. It can indeed be shocking when awareness begins to turn around and look back on itself and see that everything that's going on has been desired by the truth of who you are. And that power, you are that power which has been birthed from the mind of God, made in God's image, that is with infinite power to create what you choose to experience. Self-realization is the process of making the real self real to yourself by yourself. No one else does it for you. That is why you are sovereign. You reveal your real self when you desire to do it. So the following, I'm going to give you our key ways that we can transcend and transmute our experiences. And all of these are integral to my self-sovereignty program, and any of the other programs that you would join me on. Everything is about bringing people into that identity as source, and also taking responsibility and the ownership of dominion, and really embodying that and clearing out what isn't true and working on the shadow energy. So first of all, it's practice of, I'm not saying that these go in chronologically, but I'm just going to give you a map of what is required to come into your power, to come into your sovereign power. It's just the practice of positive separation, which means owning our true identity as inseparable from love versus identifying only as our ego mind. It's owning that I and my father, mother are one, and relinquishing all doubt and unworthiness of our unconditional innocence and eternal innocence. It's a commitment to embrace every event or experience as our own creation and allow it to be unconditionally neutral and not judge it as good or bad or right or wrong. This upholding of neutrality is what gives rise to a detachment that takes us out of the gravitational pull of the ego mind and compulsive fear and reactivity. It's a detachment that gives rise to a confidence in our dominion, to call forth miracles where we abandon all effort to control all outcomes and hand the whole situation, no matter how difficult, over to our inner teacher, to God, to Holy Spirit, to our guide, whatever you want to call it. We let that higher aspect of our soul reorganize reality for us, be that a relationship, our health issues, finances. All planning based on fear, protection, or defense is completely put aside. It's radical. So this detachment and surrender of control and calling forth the miracle, it brings forth a tangible levity, a real lightening up and shift into our transcendence with our felt senses, where we perceive things very, very differently. We have a gradual remembering of our power and the innate dominion within us, which gives us back an unshakable certainty that we are loved unconditionally by love itself, and that we are innately safe. So unlike most worldly concepts of sovereignty, it is dominion through a peaceful, fearless surrender, not control or dominance. So this detachment is not a denial of the ego or how we feel. We do indeed have to acknowledge the ego and embrace its pain, and including the pain in our past lives that's been locked down and gridded into our energy bodies. But we do this without the sense of victimhood and unworthiness. So in my sessions with clients, I do this by taking them through a process of unconditional soothing, compassionate love and dialogue with the parts of us that feel hurt, rejected, abandoned, betrayed, deceived, overlooked, ignored, confused, angry, resentful, helpless, hopeless, because all of this lives on inside us until we give it our loving attention, and it will sabotage our life until we do. So this is also inner child work. I also take clients through approaching every adversity as what our soul has called forth as an opportunity to love and forgive and cherish ourselves more deeply. Our inner teacher can use absolutely anything to bring us to dominion. So no experience was wasted. Nothing that is going on right now is a wasted experience. It can all be used by our inner teacher to heal and transform us. So we also have to go right inside and dig deep to where we originally made that choice to reject the love that we are in essence, in deciding to entertain a reality outside of the love that we are. We have to, so it's sort of an illusory reality in a way. We have to unravel and deconstruct and the value that we give to our ego's decision for vicious self-attack through guilt, and core level unworthiness. And also it's about not giving in to fear, but emotionally detoxing from fear and seeing it as the ego's weapon. And we acknowledge it with love, but we don't let it be our master. Also, with clients, we do forgiveness of ourselves for ever calling for situations and people that we have soul contracts with, past and present. And this is done in the full understanding that we are not forgiving anything or anyone for being wrong, but we are letting everyone off the hook of our judgment so that we can re-identify with the wholeness and unconditional eternal innocence of everyone's essence and the true mind, not the judgments of our ego mind. So I also encourage clients to get regular energy clearing or learn to clear your own energetic fields. And I can teach you how to do this. I have a program for this. It's a 2-hour tutorial. Otherwise, you can have energy clearings with me for yourself and for your home and your workspace and dense energies that may have accumulated the same way as you would, wash up and do the laundry and spring clean. So that means clearing chakras, portals, entities, attachments, implants, disincarnates, repairing of 12-strand DMA damage, and clearing all blocking and interfering and dark, intrusive, or oppressive energies and discordant energy program in any lifetime in any dimension, and clearing past life self-punishment programs, hidden vows, and sabotaging limitations on your freedom, sovereignty, and ascension. I also do energy clearing with clients to increase for the increased materialization of both planetary miasma and individual miasma, which are the inherited in ancestral and genetic patterns recorded in our cellular matrix that impact the physical body and spiritual energetic bodies and our planetary body. So more of these miasmic patterns are surfacing now because it is their time to be cleared, to be able to shift and ascend to this next level of higher density. So this energetic clearing and forgiveness and loving compassion are all powerful transmuters of stuck, dense energy, and they are what open the door to high awareness of our oneness with Source, where the gifts don't just show up, our spiritual gifts and our awareness and knowings, they don't just show up. We get the guidance to use them from within. We get the inner guidance that comes from a greater connection to our God Source self. We know we are loved, we know we are safe, we know we are lovable and worthy, and we're always given the resources and guidance we need to fulfill our purpose in extending only love from the one mind in the particularly unique way that we are destined to do. So I think that sort of sums up what I wanted to say for today. So if you are interested and want to learn more from me, I suggest looking at the links back to my website. There's energy clearing programs, the soul sovereignty program. And yeah, I think that's just about it. Thank you so much for listening. It's Louise Smart from emotional-detox.com. Thank you.